Hello, everyone, and welcome back to part two of my journey to heal from childhood sexual trauma. I'm going to call it CSA just for the sake of the YouTubes. If you're new here, hello and welcome. It's lovely to have you here. And this year, I'm on a mission to reclaim my body and break a cycle of fear that's kept me from feeling, totally safe in my body and, feeling comfortable to be seen. And I'm sharing that with you so that we can have a space to visit that is, free of shame and stigmas and taboos, and we can talk about healing CSA and root for each other along the way. So if you're into it, subscribe and say hi in the comments. Right now, what I'm doing is I'm healing my relationship with my physical health by losing weight. Not through punishment or perfection, but this time doing it through self-love and consistency and care. The consistency is something that I really, really struggle with. I've spent years flip-flopping between trying to, fix myself and then giving up entirely. But what I've realized is that it turns out I'm not a problem. I have problems, but I'm not a problem myself. I have problems that can be healed and can be fixed, and I'm changing the perspective, the way I look at this, so that I'm now trying to learn how to meet my problems, the problems that I have, with compassion and non-judgment. And the reason I'm doing that is that I want to feel proud in my body. I want to feel at home in my skin. I just want to, be myself without any unnecessary drama. This journey, it's not just about losing weight, it's about building a lifestyle that serves me by regaining control in a healthy way, instead of being at the whim of, all of my very unhelpful belief systems, and also at the whim of, my nervous system that still has a few kinks to be worked out, let's say, a few knotted wires still. And the reason that I want to do it is because, there always comes a time, there's this point in the journey when I will be on a good roll, feeling good about myself, and then, the old habits, they just start crawling back in, just sort of sneaking their way back. For example, just in this past few weeks, I have somehow gained back everything that I worked to let go of, and then some, and then did a little bit of extra just for good measure. It was, if I'm honest, when I'm reflecting back on it, it had been building for a little while. Some of it was because of just life stress that was happening at the time, but ironically, I think what really tipped the scales is it was preparing for these videos that caused the setback, because there was this background anxiety about, being vulnerable on the internet. And I had started letting, little treats creep in, which isn't bad. A little treat is okay, because again, I'm not trying to punish myself with this lifestyle change. I'm trying to make it realistic and sustainable, and I'm not giving up little treats altogether. So it's okay if they come back in a little bit. But what happened is that I went away for a weekend, or we went away for a weekend, because my husband and his mate, they were running a half marathon, so we made a little weekend out of it. And the whole weekend, I was giving myself free rein to do, whatever I wanted. And, my excuse was always, because I'm on holiday, I can eat that cake, I'm on holiday. I can, have all of the pizza, I'm on holiday. Which again, it's not so bad if you're on holiday to enjoy yourself. The issue really was that when we came home, the holiday didn't stop. Once that little voice had shimmied its way back in, it didn't go away. So actually, it wasn't until, it wasn't until my digestion went to hell, my eczema came back in full force. I get all on my hands, and it's so inflamed and itchy, and it cracks and dries, and I had brain fog, and I had zero motivation to exercise, which meant that I was just feeling super bloated and uncomfortable. And really, actually, movement is the thing that serves me the best in those moments, as well as going drinking a lot of water and eating better. But movement sort of helps me the most, but it's the thing that I least want to do and feel comfortable participating in going to the gym, or doing something active. At the moment, I'm still actually on the back end of that flip flop of self neglect, that flip flop back into self neglect. But at least thankfully, thanks to a lot of bone broth, lion's mane, a renewed gym membership, my gut health has finally sort of restored itself enough that my gut's not giving me such grief anymore, and my hands are finally back to normal. The eczema has gone away again too, which is also really, really amazing. And it kind of all comes into what I'm doing with this year, with this is the cycle that I'm breaking, or this is the cycle that I am breaking. I've held onto this weight for so long and I keep going back into it because it's what makes me feel safe. But I'm over it. I can recognize that I don't need it anymore, and the kind of space that I'm in now, if the kind of space that I'm in now, it's like Elizabeth Gilbert has this great quote. She says, "I've never seen any transformation that didn't begin with the person in question finally getting sick of their own bullshit." And that's very much me at the moment. Pretty sick of my shit. Pretty sick of feeling inflamed and like just blobby and bloated and foggy, and amen to doing something about it. I want to feel vibrant and strong, instead of sluggish, instead of bloated, instead of recovering again from another bout of eczema. So to do that, I'm rebuilding my life from the inside out. And that's going to look like a lot of just really practical things, healing my gut and moving daily, improving my social media habits, which I will admit are pretty shit at the moment. And that's a new one that's sort of tied into that cycle, I think, is the social media, which means learning how to regulate my emotions better, how to connect with them better, nurturing creativity, so I have good outlets, being present with the people that I love, and really just getting into a space where I'm not neglecting the little things, like getting enough fresh air and going to bed on time, because they do seem like such little things, but they compound and add up to so much. A few nights in a row of going to bed later than I know really works for my body. I mean, it shows up. It shows up in my day, in not feeling as great as I could or as I want to be. And so that's the work this year. It's really about building consistency with these things, because I can do them. I have done them. I just don't bloody know how to stay with it without going into that flip-flopping. And that's why all of this for me feels like the biggest act of self-love. I'm reclaiming my body, and I'm reclaiming my life. SA trauma symptoms, or CSA trauma symptoms also, they will manifest a little bit differently for everyone. But one common feature is a very complicated relationship with your body. The trauma, it tends to make your body feel more like your enemy than your home. And I think where I am right now is I'm definitely frenemies with my body, is what I would say. But the way that it's showing up for me is not the way it's going to show up for everybody. Not everyone will go back and forth. Some people, for example, they feel a lot of anxiety if they can't get to the gym, and if they're not eating really clean. somebody else might put on a lot of protective weight and then never be able to let go of it. It manifests differently for everybody. One common thread through it all, though, is that it's all really about power and control and trying to take those things back through coping mechanisms. And I know that that has certainly been true for me when I think stop and I think about my habits and I think about these patterns that I have. I put on weight, or I've come to learn that I'm putting on weight as a way of hiding from the world, but also hiding from myself. Because, all of my adult life, I've been locked in a tug of war between the self that I want to be, that I can catch glimpses of, and then rubber banding into the self that I feel safe being. So that means, going from nurturing myself for periods of time and then snapping back into the neglect, the poor eating, no exercise, rubbish sleep, the scrolling far too much, doom scrolling far too much, the whole shebang. And I mean, unfortunately, the grief is that I would definitely say I've spent more time feeling overweight and having poor digestion than I have feeling really vibrant and really, really good. And, it took a while to figure out what was going on. If you haven't seen my first video, I would recommend checking it out if you're interested in that process of discovery, because that's where I go into it a little bit more. But sort of where I go into it a little bit more, but kind of what I've come to understand is that being overweight just enough to be overlooked, that was my personal way of hiding from unwanted attention, and a good excuse to never fully participate in my life. To be able to say, to hold back, like, oh no, I don't really want to go to the beach today because I don't feel comfortable in it, or I don't really do that because I'm like, oh, I'm too bloated. Like, ugh. So it holds me back in just little subtle ways, and which is all about the hiding. But it's worth noting that, at least for me, I haven't been successful in that. It doesn't really seem to work. It just seems to be a huge pain in the ass to be caught in that loop and in that pattern. But you know, I gave it my best shot. I still gave it a good try, because again, what I've learned along the way is that, sort of what prompted that pattern to emerge and begin in the first place is that, for me, attention felt threatening, because it can be unpredictable. You can't control where it comes from. So being out in the world always made me feel, a little bit nervous. Yeah, it just always made me feel a little bit nervous about. It made me feel a little bit out of control in some ways, but more than that, it was also it was also the shame that made me want to hide under the bed forever. It's weird to talk about this. There's a really odd feeling which might relate to that tug of war of, wanting to be, which might relate to that physical tug of war. Maybe the physical tug of war is in some ways a manifestation of exactly what was going on inside, because there was that feeling of, so for context, my experiences with CSA weren't things that I talked about or sought help for until I was about 30. Properly sought help for and talked to my family and went to a therapist until I was 30. And these things happened in early childhood and in adolescence. So it was a long time of carrying things without having a place to put them, and that created this really odd feeling of, one part of me that desperately wanted to be seen and validated, that contrasted completely with the other much bigger protective part of me that was desperately afraid of anybody finding out. And I think part of that fear, what that protective part was trying to, that held me back from really seeking help and really talking to people about it, is I guess I was afraid of being judged. Like, it took me a long time to recognize that the usual things, that it wasn't my fault, that it was a crime against me, not something that you can't hold a 6-year-old responsible for something like this, but, and even if you know that intellectually, at least for myself, it took a long while for that to really sink in and be something true. So for a long time, and certainly for all of my 20s, until I was 30 and I really sought help for this, I had, a big fear of being judged. I was really afraid that if the feeling was, that if they really knew and saw me, they wouldn't want to deal with the baggage of someone who is, it's never really nice way to frame it, but the feeling was of being stained, of not being clean anymore. And so that also made me want to stay hidden, that shame. So the problem was not really with being seen or taking up space or, even having a voice, being noticed, anything like this. The problem has always been my association with those things, more specifically, all of the negative outcomes that I have tied to the idea of getting too much attention. Those are the really unhelpful core beliefs that I'm working to unlearn, so that I can feel more like myself. And, it all really sucks because it's at odds with my personality. Like, I am quite bubbly. I do want to chat. I really do want to chat. I do want to show off and have a laugh, but it's like, yeah, I do want to chat. I do want to chat, but don't put me on show. Yes, acknowledge me. Let's have fun. I want to be successful, but I don't want to be in the spotlight. I don't think it's true now, but I think definitely in my 20s, disorganized attachment was my jam because of that real going in and then retreat. It was all a bit messy and a bit complicated. But what was really quite lovely to realize is that maybe like a few weeks ago now, I saw this reel when I was in one of my doom scrolling sessions, and it was a nice moment though. There was this woman and she was taking the piss out of herself and made a little like montage of like how anytime she's engaged in the task and she's by herself and minding her business and doing a thing, if somebody comes in and pays attention to her or watches what she's doing, she will, fumble and get really nervous and, suddenly she just doesn't really know what to do with herself. And I found that so interesting. It made me feel really happy, like a sense of pride, because it was like a nice moment to see, actually, I've come, like sometimes I forget how bloody far I've come and how much work has gone into it. Because I used to do that too. I used to be exactly the same. I used to crumble the second that I felt like I was being watched. Especially like late teens, early 20s, if I was doing something and somebody started watching me or just came into the space, I would immediately become anxious and super wobbly. And it was like a big part of the reason why I was known as being such a klutz back in the day. I was famous for constantly tripping and spilling and falling and breaking. And, another nice thing to realize from that is, what I became aware of later is that was dysregulation. That was what was making everything so hard to manage that, and a couple other things, but I'll talk about that later. But seeing that has changed. I mean, I am still goofy. I would definitely own that. If I'm not paying attention or not paying enough attention, things get wobbly pretty quickly. My husband would definitely still agree that I'm a bit goofy, but it was really lovely to see how that had changed and to be able to take ownership of something that was genuinely me and be able to let go of something that wasn't me, that was a trauma symptom, the dysregulation. I might be a bit goofy, but I'm not a total menace like I used to be. And I don't know how to explain. This is another feeling that I don't necessarily know how to explain, but it just feels so lovely. Like, it feels so lovely to know that I'm just a bit goofy. I'm not a total menace. I like that I gave that back. I gave back that thing that wasn't actually mine in the first place. I don't know. Maybe you can relate. Maybe something similar has happened that you've been able to give something back that didn't belong to you. I think what also is important to note in this conversation and in this journey too is that this isn't purely and exclusively a CSA response. Even the dysregulation and the dripping and the falling and everything. There are definitely other factors that contributed to that feeling of low self-worth, that contributed to the fear and the anxiety that was manifesting or helping to build and create these patterns that I'm working to disrupt. Some of it, for example, is cultural. Like in Australia, we have this thing called tall poppy syndrome. If you're not familiar with it, it's imagine a big field of beautiful poppy flowers, and then now picture one of those flowers growing above the rest of them. If that happens, all of the poppies cut down the flower that grew too big. This is kind of what we do back in Oz. We don't really celebrate each other the way that I've noticed, for example, that Americans will celebrate each other. I've like maybe a good example would be, let's say that you have started meditation. You're getting your shit together, you're feeling good, you're meditating, and then everything is following along with that. Things are getting better, work is improving, it's kicking off. And you tell your friends, like, yeah, I started meditating and now business is going so great, and the missus is really happy, and things are fantastic. Being openly proud of yourself and doing really well means probably not to your face. Probably, someone will take the piss out of you, I'm sure, but probably not so much to your face. There'll be this tall poppy, like, oh, what a wanker kind of attitude, for doing well. And if you do really well and you have the audacity to be openly and publicly proud of it, especially if you do really well, then you are definitely going to hear some real dumb shit, like, oh, they're doing all this like woo-woo meditation and now they've gone a bit weird, like, oh, they're a wanker, like, they've got all this success and now they're just a bloody snob. Like, I mean, I'm generalizing, but you get the gist of it. It's silly. The whole thing is really silly. But on some level, it does inspire you to be more self-deprecating and to keep your head down a little bit. I think the idea is supposed to be like something about humility, but it's really a load of shit. It's just a projection of insecurities and trying not to make other people feel uncomfortable. This is just, a way of saying that it's layered. That healing process is layered. It's not going to be all about one thing. Other things like this might come up for you, but for me, wanting to be invisible and fly under the radar, it does have such significant ties to the essays that's why I'm focusing specifically on its impact. I feel like I've actually done a lot of work around the other stuff, and this is like the, why do I keep saying like? I don't even usually say like in my day-to-day life, and now I'm just like liking out of control. Anyway, that's new. So yes, what was I saying? So yes, the essays, they were such a big part of it, or they are such a big part of it, and I have done other work about other things, but this feels like whenever I sit with it, it comes back to this, that there is still unresolved shit about it. There is still something unresolved here. So for me, this year, my goal is to free myself of this bloody ball and chain, the ball and chain being the unhelpful flip-flopping tug of war back and forth. The short, unsustainable bursts of health where I do feel proud of myself and I do feel physically well, and I dress cute, and I dress cute because I feel cute, and then somewhere in that just flip-flopping into the long periods of stress eating and anxiety and horrible digestion and brain fog and all of that jazz. And it's all just the result of dissociating and neglecting my physical and emotional well-being, and not really knowing how to stay with stay in that good space. The anchor point for this part of this chapter is losing weight and getting in shape and learning how to stay that way, because it umbrellas a lot of things that are very important. What's really important is that consistency and being able to stay in a place where I feel content and I feel safe and feel joy. Like, consistency is my number one struggle. And again, that just circles back to how this is, this is an act of self-love, because updating my lifestyle means that I'm going to have to go and confront things that I would really rather not. I have to go through the grief and the grind of learning to take proper care of myself and learning how to treat my body as a home and not as my enemy, how to stop being frenemies with myself. And what inspired this, my why, my reason for doing it all, is that really simply put, I just don't want to live a life that's controlled by trauma. That, yes, trauma is a part of my history, but it doesn't own me. I want to be I want to be at home in my body. I want to have agency, and I want to go on great adventures. I can't change my childhood, but I can decide if hiding myself under baggy clothing and, layers of blobbiness is worth it. I get to decide, is it worth not taking care of my gut health so that I feel too bloated and shitty and no pun intended to be outside, and living life with my friends and the people that are important to me. I can decide if it's worth not expressing myself through the colors and the textures of my clothing, and not celebrating my body and the fact that it's a fucking miracle that I'm alive. And I mean that both from a big picture perspective, that, the universe is enormous, and it's kind of crazy to think about how I could easily not have existed, that everything had to happen in, just the right way so that, I could be here, and that's wonderful, and that's really cool. And the heavier side is that it's also amazing that I survived my childhood, which still feels like, makes me feel very silly and dramatic to say it, but it's true, and I could easily have not have made it this far. And the tragic thing is that, a lot of men and women, they don't get the chance to come this far. They don't make it through the things, unfortunately, that happened to them. So my why is that I didn't come this far just to half-ass it now. And what I have to look forward to is so great. a couple of years ago, my fiance and I, we were lucky enough to be able to visit the Dolomites in Italy. And if you, I mean, for one, forgive me, Italy, because I'm absolutely certain I'm pronouncing all of this wrong, but that's where we went. And if you haven't heard of them, type it into YouTube and check out the vlogs about these mountains because they are just stunning. And it feels like you're walking through Photoshop because everything is just perfect and the air is perfect. Everywhere you look, it's just like, wow, it's amazing. And it was a big deal. I mean, I've never been in mountains like that before, so I was so enamored. My husband and I, we were walking up this one mountain called Sassalungo. It was super tough. It's very vertical. And I came to realize, I think it was on the way back down, that this is what I want to do. I never thought I would have so much fun from what is essentially walking up a very steep hill for an hour, but I did. I loved it. And coming back down, I was talking to my husband. I was like, this is it. This is what I want to. I want to do as much of this as I can do, as often as I can get it done. This is so much fun. This is the best. And to circle back to the present moment and maybe making those dreams come true, the reality is that right now I'm nowhere near fit enough for half of the things that I want to do. I mean, I was a little blobby when I went up Sassalungo, and I mean, it had been a few months since I had worked out, which, it wasn't so bad. It's definitely a beginner's climb. It's not the hardest thing, but it was certainly unnecessarily hard. I mean, even just a little bit of exercise. What are you doing back just staring at the wall like that? Oh, that's okay. It's okay. It's okay. Getting Blair Witch vibes back there. But yeah, and since then, since that trip, I've been Googling and investigating. I've seen so many mountain climbing retreats and hikes, and there's this one that's 3 days through the wilderness in Alaska. Looks amazing. Looks amazing. But if I stay on my current health trajectory, all of those dreams are going to stay just that, which is the truth, which is the thing I have to be honest with myself about. So, once again, I didn't go through all of that crap in my childhood, and not even just the crap in my childhood. I didn't go through all of the fucking years of hard work to get where I am now, just to turn back, just to leave it there and half-ass it. I am going to go climb some goddamn mountains. That is my goal. You okay, puppy? You okay? Oh, stretchy, yeah. Yeah, good stretch. So, phase 1 of Operation Love My Body Until It Feels Like Home is all about eating well. Eating well and working out, of course. Losing weight and getting into good routines, gradually updating my lifestyle so that next year I can move into phase 2, which is going to be the hardest phase, and that is being consistent. Because getting there is something that I've done before, but staying there is the part that is very new. So first off, since we're all here together, here are my goals for the year. And what I want to do is turn it to move shit around too much. Hi. My goals are to fit into my cute Levi's by Christmas. I am planning to fit in my cute Levi's by Christmas. I am planning to lose a bunch of weight this year, but what I am not planning to do is to share any numbers in terms of kilos, because it's not that type of channel. Everybody is going to be at different stages of their life, have different dreams, different challenges, different body types, and what feels right for me may not be the best fit for you, and vice versa, which is totally fine. So that's why I'm marking and celebrating my milestones with everyone through pants, because we're not trying to. I'm not here to try to add to the comparison culture, but The point is, though, that even though our goals for healing might look different, may not be exactly the same, we can still walk beside each other in the way there. So to mark my milestones, as I said, I'm going to use pants. And part of the reason I'm doing that is, I mean, I can't be the only person that has clothes taking up space in the cupboard that you don't want to throw away, but you also can't wear. And I've had these sitting in there taking up physical and mental space for too long, as you're about to see. So this is what we're going to do. This is what's happening. So phase one is my black jeans. These I could actually fit into last year, but especially with my recent bout of putting on some weight and getting stressed out and anxious and flip-flopping, I cannot wear these anymore. They barely will close, but well, yeah, these are I can't wear these anymore. They're just, yeah, I just can't wear them right now. So this is the first place I want to get to, which is great because actually it shouldn't be too hard. It's like a nice, easy, achievable goal, because with a bit of consistency, just a little bit of planning, I should be able to get here pretty quickly, which is fantastic. So that will create good momentum, kicking goals early out the gate. Then once I get from there, it's going to be my Zara shorts, which, well, it doesn't matter that they're from Zara. What matters is that I bought these online, and I can't. I'm sure I can't be the only person. Like, tell me, I'm not the only person, right? I bought these online, and they came, and they are probably, or at the time, they were probably about half a size too small, and I could not be bothered to send them back. So instead, what I thought is, I'm just going to keep them because I've been meaning to get back into it and get started, and this will be good incentive to do that, and it'll be it'll be a nice little reward. So, I'm just going to keep them. And that was 2.5 years ago, and the tags are still on them. So that's about how well that went. Then from there, once from there, it's just a hop, skip, and a jump, really. It's not too far to get to the next goal, which is my white jeans. And these I think I am the most excited about getting back into, because I actually wore these on my first date with my husband 8 years ago. They were a little snug. I will admit, when we went out, they were a little bit snug, but they looked good. My butt looked amazing, so that's why I wore them on the date. And there's just so much nostalgia with these jeans. I'm really excited about being able to get back into them, because I want to surprise my husband on a date and, wear my first date jeans. I think I know actually he'll really get a kick out of that. So that's where we're going to go. Then after that, we have the big final boss, and those are the Levi shorts. These I bought the same year that I had my white jeans, so like 8 years ago now. And when I got these, I knew at the time that they weren't going to fit, but I bought them because they were on Facebook Marketplace, and they were such a bargain that I was like, I don't care, I'm going to get them, and then I'm going to make myself fit into them, because just like the Zara's, I thought, well, this is a good opportunity. I've been wanting to get stuck into it and find my rhythm again. Incentive, motivation, blah, blah, blah. 8 years later, never worn them out of the house. Been able to a couple of times put them on, never been able to fit into them well enough to leave the house. So there is what I love about this is that there's also a really happy side bonus, which is freeing myself of the mental weight of them just taking up space in the cupboard, and then actually being able to enjoy them. And when I was preparing for this, and I was thinking about my goals and doing a bit of a cupboard clean out, I kind of had a moment of feeling just exhaustion, because not being able to get in these for 8 years, I mean, there is the positive side of it of not being determined and continually trying and trying and trying, which, you know, I do need to acknowledge and give myself credit for. You know, amazing. I've always been determined. I've always kept trying, even if I haven't actually made it there yet. You know, I've still kept getting back on the horse. But the other side, the exhausting part is, oh my God, that is such a long time to be getting on and falling off the horse. And at this point in time, again, Elizabeth Gilbert, I'm just sick of my own bullshit. Like, it's just, I just want it to be done. I just want it to be done so that I don't have to think about it anymore. It feels like, this is what it feels like. It feels like for the past 8 years, because that's about how long I've really been dedicating to working on CSA trauma. And I mean, it's been longer than that, it's been since, you know, I was a teenager that I was back and forthing, but really, really working on it. And so it's been like 8 years now, and I just want it done. I just feel it feels like I've been standing on a precipice of change. Like, there is a bridge between where I am and where I want to be, and I've just been standing there waiting to take that first step on the bridge, like just overthinking and overthinking how to get on the bridge, so that I've never gotten on the bridge, and I've still just been standing on one side looking at where I want to be, where I'm headed, and not able to really go there. It's like maybe I put one foot on the bridge and then I'll overthink it and then step back again. And I mean, I have the compassion and understanding for why that is, but at the same time, the exhaustion, and I'm just so ready to be done with it. I'm just so bloody ready to be on the other side and have it done and get good at consistency, you know, and not have to worry about it anymore, and feel proud of myself for getting into all of these and have the cute date with my husband. So yeah, sorry, I think I waffled for a minute there, but thank you so much for listening. This is what we're going to do this year. Well, this is what I'm going to do. This is my plan, but I would love to know what's present for you. And I mean, again, this is all about creating a space that's free of stigmas and taboos, and even if we're not going in exactly the same direction, you know, this is about being able to root for each other along the way and celebrate each other's wins and provide inspiration, and, you know, just a nice place to land and to come to learn and to keep growing and to keep moving forward. So say hi. I would love to know where you are, what your plans are. Subscribe, like, follow along. Really importantly, I would say, I know it's difficult to take ownership of CSA trauma because there's a lot of shame there. But if you can, you know, if you know somebody who might benefit from being part of a community, or seeing that there is a space to go to learn more, and even just to be able to talk about healing CSA, you know, please share with anybody that this feels like it might be of service to. And I will see you next time.